Once upon a time, our storytellers gather, bringing with them only a set of dice, a scroll of magical story elements, and a passion to create. Rolling for genre, setting in time, and character archetype, our storytellers Ethan, Ari, and Nathan weave a tale right before your very eyes. Stay a while and listen as we share our creativity in progress.
And hello and welcome to Creativity in Progress yet again for another show. As always, I am one of your hosts, Ethan Murphy, and I am joined by the lovelies, Nathan Beatty Jr.
Hi.
And the other lovelies, Ari Arner.
Hi, I am plural.
Perfect. You're both. There's both so much of you to love that you're both plural in my mind. Always have
That's
been.
very sweet. Thank you.
Of course. And we want to welcome you all back for another episode. Sorry about last week. We had a bit of an emergency we had to take care of. In these wondrous times of horrific apocalypse, things can always go astray. We apologize for that, but we want to thank you for coming back to us this time.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you much. Real quick check-in. Everybody doing okay?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
as she convinces no one with that.
Yeah. I mean, things could be worse.
Things could be, yes. I that's the best way to put it. Things could be worse. I agree.
There could be more than one horseman involved, just...
Right. We could. I guess we have war now. We have pestilence, probably.
Yeah.
We've got pestilence, famine. Actually, all four of them.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the apocalypse. I get it.
Yeah,
Oh,
I guess they're all here. Well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hey,
that
good
was just
job.
that's a
Good
good
job.
time. Take care of yourselves. We got that burger joint.
And what I love is that this is right after, right before the stream started. Ethan was like, "Oh, we got to remember, be positive. We got to share some positivity." And we're like, "Death, Armageddon."
I didn't bring up death or the apocalypse. Well, I did bring up the apocalypse. I didn't bring up the whole four horsemen of it.
Yeah, well, I'm the one that brought up the horsemen, so I'll own that. So.
Fair enough. And in all fairness, that was the nickname we had back in the day. We played years ago. We played Magic together. And called ourselves. There's four of us who called ourselves the Four Horsemen.
Oh yes.
And I believe Derby was war because he was always looking for pick a fight. And I believe I was Pestilence because Pestilence was green, and I was green. I was the newest one to the group. But anyway, that is a massive detour that no one cares about. I can hear all you snoring from here. Oh
Yes.
boy. All right, so for the one listener that's still with us that hasn't left entirely yet, this is part 2 of our story. Last time we met a couple weeks ago, we were what we had rolled for was a story. I'll go ahead and what I'll do is a quick recap of things.
Yep.
To get everyone caught up on where we are. It's been a little while. The story we're going for, the name we're going with for this particular story, and the working title is simply None on the Run. We'll change it, obviously, but that's what we got for right now.
Yes.
The genre we rolled for was a political drama. The setting we had was an underground, and what it was underground. The time was present. The archetype number 1 was None. Archetype number 2 was Narrator, and archetype number 3 was Miser. It's a world of animals or woodland creatures that are forced to live underground due to humans building homes in the woods. The miser, Mr. Vincent, wants to keep the underground community where it is. Vincent runs things as a kind of a restrictive mayor with the resources, trying to kind of keep things going as long as possible. After many years, the resources start to run thin. Miss Briz, our nun character, is working with young animals that are starving and thinks they need to migrate to a new land. One of the kids, the little French fry, is nearly starved and forces Miss Briz to speed up her timeline and come up with a solution to the problem they're having. While Miss Briz is teaching a class on historical geography, they stumble upon a sort of a land somewhere else that could have potentially many more resources for them to use. And have a new life. Right. And that is more or less the end of Act 1. And as we get into Act 2 right now,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yes.
There was one thing I wanted to bring up real quick. There's a note during our furlough, I watched the movie or parts of the movie of Jurassic Park 1, the good one. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing I remember there's a difference between the book and the movie was that the Sam Neill character, or Dr. Grant, in the book, his character likes kids from the start, and there's no real change once he meets Tim and Lex. However, in the movie, what they decided to do was make it so that he didn't necessarily like kids in the beginning, but over the course of the movie, he developed a bond with them and grew to like them. And I think that something like that might work really well in this story too. If Miss Briz, because she's a nun, she may be a teacher, kind of strict, she might seem the kind of person that at first is a bit prickly, but over the course of seeing the plight of the kids and meeting little French fry and all them, she kind of warms up to them that much more. And so when it comes time for the moment of truth where she has to basically confront Vincent about moving because it is for the safety of the kids or for the future prosperity of the youth, that's kind of a bit of a change for her. It kind of shows that she is growing as a character too.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's it would be a nice contrast if, I mean, Vincent's the miser, so it would be interesting if he starts out like a character where we're like, oh, he's charming.
Exactly.
And then as the story progresses, we realize just how much of an asshole he is, where being on the opposite end, we starting out, we think Mrs. Briz is an asshole, but then we realize that she's actually a very kind soul.
Yeah.
Exactly. As opposed to like a Julie Andrews, Sound of Music or whatnot, she starts out much more callous. And
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I like that as well. I like the so that way it's kind of like a crossing path sort of thing where you have, like the you I, I've seen it in other things, and I don't think it should be like so much so where you think the miser is the good guy and Miss Briz is the bad guy, but I like that crossing of character. Sorry, my brain is not working because words are hard. But you get what I mean, like the crossing of their charming nature, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, well, at least I think we start out knowing what their positions are, but it's just that the way that they communicate them makes us maybe a little bit more sympathetic with Vincent at first, and then
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think it could even like and so much so where like we don't, and I don't mean for this to be like a reveal, oh, Vincent's the bad guy. Like I do think that it should kind of be like oh, we can see pretty early on that he's gonna be the antagonist. But I like the idea that maybe at first there's a question, like, oh, we haven't met the antagonist yet, and then it gets like maybe into like part of Act 2, and it's like, oh yeah, no, he's antagonist right there.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's one thing that'll be kind of fun too, is if when we first see Miss Briz, the idea she's kind of like shooing away from the kids and seems very put off by them. To the point where when they say that they're kind of hungry or whatnot, she's kind of like, oh, well, whatever, and just kind of quickly dismisses them. But when the kids go to Vincent, he seems very much like almost like a saint in a way. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I can't help you more. Let me do this. All of them are praising him that much more. And so when it comes time for Miss Briz to oppose Vincent, people are much more likely to want to side with Vincent and are that much more likely to think that Miss Briz is wrong. It's because she's always seemed kind of cold in general, and Vincent's always been the benevolent leader.
Yeah, I like that. And then and then it's kind of, again, like I don't think it should be like a hard reveal, like oh my god, like I think it should be like I can see that. But I like that.
Okay, cool. All right, so now that we're into Act 2, I guess the idea is, when we last left off, it was I believe we're talking about where they were going to go. Do you guys have a?
Yeah.
Well, I want it to be a real place. It's just so far away and strange that they never, like, considered it. Like you mentioned, I don't know, what was it, Chicago last time?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And I believe we're talking about how they would pronounce, because they're animals, they pronounce it differently. So it wouldn't be Chicago, it'd be like Chai Kega or something like that.
Chicago or something. Like
Yeah,
if you really want to lean on the old Native American pronunciation. I could be wrong on that. I don't have sourcing on that, but I think that's how it was pronounced.
No, you're very woke, Nate. You're very woke.
But I like the idea of having it a real place. I'm reluctant to make it a place like Chicago just because it wouldn't really make sense unless we could find out like maybe there's like there's landfills as far as the eye can see that has riches for us, kind of thing, which is I don't know what kind of message that sends, but
all the mobsters and gangsters are gone for because this is set in the present too.
Yeah.
So present day Chicago is known for having all kinds of great hot dogs and that kind of stuff and deep dish pizza, but not so much as far as their woodland areas and things. Maybe like West Virginia or something. They had West Virginia.
Take Me Home. Country Roads.
There we go. Perfect. As we brought the rights to that song.
Yes.
But yeah, I guess an area that's known for having a bit more known for.
Well, that begs the question: where is this set in the first place?
Yeah,
which is true.
That's
yeah.
a good point. Where are they coming from?
Where they're coming from. Want to have it that we can keep it simple, and have it that there may be a place that would be dealing with maybe deforestation or lots of wooded areas becoming more and more suburbanized. Would be like maybe somewhere in Maryland. If we made it somewhere in Maryland, it's not too far from like West Virginia.
Yeah, that could potentially work.
Think about that for small animals. That's a very.
That's a huge trek.
That is a huge journey that they would like all die before they got there.
Right.
So I'm thinking that like it should be they're already living outside of a city, but far enough that they never actually interact with it, and also they're underground. So why would they ever like venture out?
Right. Okay. Yeah. So it could be the suburbs of, let's say, someplace already in West Virginia, and they're going to like a city that is more well known. Right then.
Or well, maybe okay. So there's a couple things we need to establish. We need to establish number one where we are, and like what kind of setting that is, and then we need to establish the setting that we're trying to go to. And the question really comes down words. The question comes down to what is their motivation? Like why? And I think that's the crux. And that was something that we never really touched on or fully landed on the last time, which is why are they leaving where they are and going to where they need to go? What is that catalyst that causes them to do that? Because that, I think, is going to determine exactly the type of place that they are and the type of place where they need to be.
Honestly, I really like we never see the humans, we never see human faces, they're just this entity, but the reason why they have to move is because that area is being renovated, or there's like new housing being put up, and it's this huge threat to the animals, and they're likely all going to die. So that's why I need to move.
Okay. Yeah. So I think what you're saying also is that they're already dwelling underground because of all the houses are put in the area in the first place. But now, because they're building more homes that weren't there before necessarily. So any resources they had, or any ability they had to get resources, they've been dwindled down even more. And the Vincent could believe that they have enough. I think we said last time as well that Vincent is in the camp that the resources that they have will be better spent on the longevity of the strongest demographic. So basically, say 20-year-olds and up to like 35 or 40-year-olds more or less, and that the elderly and the young will basically have to die off in order to make way for them. But if they do that, if they consolidate their goods in that manner, they could survive a lot longer.
Yeah.
So I guess the catalyst.
Part of the plan, possibly, from his point of view, is moving would be an expense they can't afford. So and probably more people will get hurt moving than not. So his idea is to go deeper, but um, only those who can work can help.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
And I would say they don't know this, but I think on a meta level, it just doesn't work. It's not going to work anyway because what they think is deep is not deep enough.
Yes.
So even if people do stay behind, they're going to die.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a great way to kind of have it where, you know, that she's saying we need to take this risk. He's saying that's too much of a risk. We can't do that. We've got to do this, and she's going, well, that's a risk. And you know, and so that, but there's this like give and take, and you know, we as viewers discover like, oh, that's a, you know, like we know through the fact that we, like you said, like a meta level, we're kind of privy to this information that they are not, which is essentially his risk is going to not pay off, and her risk potentially is. There's a better chance that they'll survive with her risk, which I think will also move us towards her side of the coin, I guess. So
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and I guess the thing is when obviously when Vincent proposes this idea that they need to dig deeper, and that is the best way for them to survive, or the survival of their people, more or less, is for them to dig
goal
deeper.
is survival. Like he wants people to live. He doesn't want people to die, which I think is understandable. It's just that he's so stubborn, and without all the facts, and refuses to listen to any other kind of input, that it just is going to fuck him over in the end.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because part of what this is too is the idea we have to. Obviously, he's a miser, so he's going to be very pragmatic to a fault. And if Miss Briz is in fact a nun, there is going to be a bit of faith she's going to have, as much as she's willing to take a risk or take a leap of faith more unnecessarily. So she's like, this is a better way to go.
I like the idea of like it half being faith on her part and half that faith, like I discussed last time, that faith being based on facts and information.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think we talk about obviously how during their studies, and she was teaching the kids lessons, how she came upon, or I think it was a French fry or nugget pointed out to her the idea in this book that they're reading. There's the talk of this land, this area that has all kinds of fruit and berries and everything, that kind of all the foods that they eat. There's a lot of them there, and it is a risk. That's the thing. It's a risk that Vincent isn't willing to take, but Miss Briz obviously is, because she would rather, even though she's not necessarily the biggest fan of kids or the elderly, she still would rather they all survive than Vincent's approach, which is only the strongest can survive. And that's kind of how it has to be. Okay.
And that's like, I think it's a good idea to put emphasis on she's a nun, so she practices a life doctrine which encourages love and healing for all people and not just the strong. And I want that to be the message, at least the message.
Plus the idea too is that the miser, like you said, he's stubborn, but he's also kind of selfish, or his self-preservation is number one for him.
Yeah, he thinks of, like, he's not thinking of anyone else. He knows that he can help and he has the resources, and he's strong. But then everybody else just falls to the wayside for him because they're not useful. He's lived a life where he's a businessman.
Yeah,
so
he's a businessman, right?
People who are not useful, they get fired.
Exactly. He's at the end of the day, he's a strong, hardcore capitalist. Yeah. And Miss Briz is more or less a humanitarian, even though she may be kind of crotchety at times. She's still a humanitarian. So Mrs. Briz is willing to sacrifice herself to help others, where obviously Vincent is willing to sacrifice others for himself.
Yes,
like and that's kind of that idea. I think in the climax that we have, that has to come up in some way. That the two of them, that's the single biggest impasse that they have. That's the breakdown of their philosophies, that they cannot get around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm trying to think. So we're still okay. So, we're Act 2. I'm just my brain is jumping ahead a little bit in the final fight conflict. I guess whatever the
Sure,
climax is.
yeah.
Quote unquote ninja battle.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. This is where we find out that she's a ninja nun. Who,
By the way, that's got to be our next story. Please,
the subtitle
God.
of the movie is Nunja.
Oh,
and I was gonna say, and she has nunchucks. See, see.
Yes.
I changed it to Nunja, subtitle Nunja. None of the run.
None on the run. Yes. Oh, yes.
Nunja Chronicles. All right.
Yes.
All right.
But I'm seeing a conflict where she like essentially there's a thing where a choice has to be made, and
oh yes, I know where you're going.
Yeah, like, and he makes the selfish choice, she makes a selfless choice, seemingly sacrificing herself, and in reality the outcome is reversed, where because he made the selfish choice he dies, but because she made the selfless choice she gets saved.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good part for Act 3. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
that's a good part for Act 3. But I think what you touched on earlier was really good too. The idea that because we're still in Act 2, so there's got to be some plot points and reveals. At that point, there's got to be something I think that'll happen, or a bit of a turn or a reveal in a way where, because I think even on some level, Miss Briz might believe that Vincent is a more benevolent leader. He's been leading them for years, and she trusts in him. And then something comes up where, in some way, she brings up, oh, we can do this to help out this old person or help out someone here with this item, with this piece of food or whatever it is. And Vincent reveals part of his true nature as far as like, he's like, oh, that's unnecessary. It's better for these two guys in their prime to survive as opposed to these 4 elderly people to linger on. Or something like that. Some way is revealed by some kind of little thing. And she and Miss Briz is the only one that's privy to this information, where she sees the first actual glimpse of his actual true self, so to speak.
Yeah. I think we had discussed last week about how like she goes to, because she's caring for the kids or, what have you. This was before we found out that she was a little bit of a cranky old lady. We were talking about how she essentially goes to him and basically says, okay, we need our rations. And he's like, oh, well, here's your rations.
Perfect.
And
yeah, that's it. That works.
And yeah, we're not caring for these refugees anymore because they're not, one of us,
right. There we go. That's it. That'll work. Yeah. Yes. So it could be, that's a great idea. So Ms. Briz goes to him asking for either the daily rations or whatever it is. I guess this could be once Vincent is putting into once it's been revealed that they were going to have to dig deeper in order to keep finding enough resources or what have you. This is when they really start tightening up their belt. And that's when Vincent and Miss Briz goes to and say, hey, we need our daily rations for the kids and everything like that. And Vincent's like, oh, well, here's for you and the other teachers, or their nuns or what have you. And doesn't really bother to give her enough for the other kids. And he's like, what's going on? What's happening? She says, what's this? What are you doing? And he pretty much says, it's attrition. It's a time to kind of start cutting our losses, essentially.
I had a thought, and I realize this is a little bit of detail, but I have a vision of a scene where she maybe two scenes where like the first scene is they find these refugees and he's all about let's yes, oh yeah, come in here, take a blanket, rest, you need rest and everything, and he's with her, he's right there with her, be like, yes, let's make sure you're okay, blah blah blah. And then the next day when she comes and says, hey, need food, and he gives her food and she goes, this isn't enough, and he goes, enough for who? That's for you. And she goes, well, the refugees. And he went, you haven't kicked them out yet? Like you haven't like you haven't sent them away? Like yeah, we cared for them, but we can't keep taking care of them. They're dead weight.
Right.
And then that's when the audience goes, oh, asshole.
Right.
Exactly.
Yes. And anyway, this is going back to what Ari said too, that there's another area that's being kind of deforested or that people are kind of building up more homes, these refugees could be coming from that area, the new area that's being.
Yeah, I mean, the first step is because these are the above ground creatures, so it hasn't.
Yes.
Yeah, he's above ground. Yes, that's what it is.
Yeah, it hasn't reached the below ground people. That's why they haven't heard of it yet. And the whole reason they hear of it is because of the refugee.
Right, that's what starts it off. Yeah, that's what start. That's probably the end of Act 1 more so than the beginning of Act 2 is them finding the refugees, and that's also when. Yep, you're right. And actually, it's around. Okay, so. Yep. Yep. Getting some notes here. Okay, so the end of Act 1 is actually where Vincent and Miss Briz, some refugees come down to where they are, and they're obviously aren't too savvy with underground dwelling, how to live that way because they've been above ground creatures. And Miss Briz and Vincent talk to them, and Vincent seems very welcoming to these new creatures, wants to do everything, of course, to help them. And as they welcome them in and give them blankets and like that, Miss Briz goes to Vincent to get the rations for them later on. And that's when Vincent says, "Oh no, I thought you would have gotten rid of them, or don't you realize that they can't stay with us, or something like that nature. It's survival of the fittest. It's about us now. We don't have time to support other people."
Yeah, and didn't you hear what they said? Like, we're about to have a problem. We can't be worrying about them now.
Yes, now it's time for us to move. Yeah.
It could be that, which I like, or it could be he only gives her enough food for the able-bodied refugees.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he specifically says it too. Give this just to the the able-bodied, bigger,
and
athletic
maybe
ones.
That's why she's like, what, why? And then he tells her his plan, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good point for him to reveal. And it's not that he's revealing an evil plot or anything. He's just revealing his, like, I thought you agreed with me. Like, this is, this is just common sense, And she's like, monster,
Exactly.
Right. And the best part is that, of course, is that he pretty much assumed that Miss Bridge, because she is so prickly, that she didn't care about the well-being necessarily of other people too much. It was pretty much he thought she'd be on board with this from the start.
Yeah.
And that's when she kind of turns her nose like, "What are you talking about? Whether I like people has nothing to do with whether I want them to survive or live."
Yeah.
Yes, and so that's when it's revealed as far as his ultimate goal is just to have just for the fittest to survive long enough for them to dig deeper and find more resources and things of that nature.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think one thing we haven't really discussed necessarily is I guess Miss Briz actually is probably more of an older type of character, and Vincent's probably a bit of a younger. Well, not young, but like maybe like 40. I mean, maybe Miss Briz is like 50 or something like that. So she actually would seem the way the story be on the surface level, you would think that the older person would probably be the villain, and the young person would probably be the hero. And it's kind of reversed in that way.
Well, I think I kind of like having them both be like an indeterminate middle age, for the creatures. I think that works. Like I don't think either of them should be overtly elderly or and one overtly young. Like I think they should be just indeterminate. I don't know. I don't know what you guys think.
No, that makes sense.
It would be more of a concern if these were human people, but they're animals, and I don't think it's really necessary. I think their convictions should stand for themselves.
Yeah. Plus, they've been there. It seemed that they've been there together the same amount of time. They both Briz and Vincent were around back in the days when they were living above ground, and they both were there when they make the migration underground. So they're around the same age, roughly, or whatnot. They have the same perspective. Okay, that's fair. Just throwing stuff out. Okay. And so now that we have that established, as far as that's when Briz really kind of sees the motives and true personality of Vincent. Would it be? I guess we could have set up earlier that in class or in school, that little nugget or French fry has revealed or talked about this idea of other lands or stuff to Miss Briz, but she wasn't necessarily motivated to go there until after this. And so after this, it could be that Act 2 is more or less where Miss Briz really starts investigating the whereabouts of a quote unquote promised land or Greenland, someplace they could actually go. She's really
maybe she brushes it off at first, like, oh, that's a nice story, Timmy, or whatever.
Yeah.
And he keeps telling her, like, no, there's real, it's a real place. And then she starts doing research after she hears Vincent basically condemn everyone.
Yes. Oh, and, yes, right. That's right. I think you mentioned last time, Nate, was that one of the kids was talking about how their grandfather, I think French father was talking about how his grandfather had these fables or these stories of this great promised land, all these things. And Miss Briz wasn't in touch with it was. And so after this, that's when Miss Briz actually talks to little French Fry again, like French Fry, what was that story you told me before? Get specific. She actually really starts minding him. And so the two of them basically start getting into the details about this because French Fry, as we discussed last time, is the actual narrator. This story is being told it's being told in a flashback or what have you from his perspective.
Exactly.
When he was a kid.
Yeah.
So this is when the two of them come together a lot more. And Miss Briz and French Fry are actually like what's let's get into the details about this land you're talking about. It's fable, so to speak. Or what it could be, I think what happened is kind of one of those things that happens in Indiana Jones where she's heard this fable from French Fry before, maybe a few times, and as she's just going through her daily or just going through this reading of old stories or whatnot, she kind of stumbles upon something that lines up with what French Fry said. Something that he couldn't have known. It happens to kind of she read a passage in the book, and it happens to click where it's exactly what French Fry said to some extent. That's the way they described it. She realizes that something about what he's saying, actually, there is some truth to what he's saying.
And like he's a kid, so he probably exaggerated it a lot, and she didn't think much of it at the time, but then she starts noticing all these connections.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Okay, that's what it is. And that's when the real treasure hunt, so to speak, begins. And that's how Act 1 will end. Yes, it's her stumbling upon the actual, lining up.
Yeah, I like that. Wow, how did we jump back to Act 1?
Let's
we had to finish it
out how this ends. I mean, we already know how.
We know how it ends. We know the big points. Because obviously the real point of this story isn't them making the exodus to the new land. That's not really what the story's about. That's not the political drama. The political drama is when Riz has to confront Vincent in front of all the people and everything, or where she has to pretty much reveal or prove to everyone that Vincent's been trying to, that he is a miser, that he's been trying just to consolidate all the rations just for certain people and exclude other ones, and no one wants to believe her. She's pretty much chastised by everybody. She's like, you've always been crotchety. We don't even like you. Why are you still here? Vincent's always been so charming. He's led us to all these things. He's never led us astray. Why he leads us astray now?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
she has to prove the impossible to these people. That's the real climax. Is how do I convince people that hate me to trust me enough to risk their lives to go someplace else?
Yeah. And I think actually the quote unquote promised land is almost like them getting to the promised land is almost an epilogue at that point.
Yeah, I agree. That's not the real point at all. I agree.
It's just
like even in
like I was going to say, like maybe the reveal, like the proving of that Vincent is full of it is maybe like I have an idea. So there's in all of this, and and again, we don't have to get into too many details here, but in all of this, there's talk of he's talking about, well, yes, I know that this area that that our neighbors, blah blah blah, that's getting developed, but you know what? They went deeper and they were fine and everything's fine, so we need to do what they did. And then there's a reveal later that, oh no, they're not fine. Like they're, like
they're dead.
Yeah, exactly. and that is what brings everybody to her side is basically them realizing that he was just talking out his ass so he could get his way, and was just assuming that everybody was okay. And even then, and like this is even a reveal to him, I think. And then, but even then, he's like, no, this is wrong. We just need to go deeper. And at that point, people are like, okay, he has lost it. Woohoo.
Right.
Yes. And then go from there.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. I'm on board for that too. All right. It's like, as you said before, he's not necessarily a villain. Actually, he's pragmatic, and he he doesn't necessarily, he's not trying to harm others. He's just trying to look out for himself and those that he believes can help him the most.
Yeah.
Which may be a villain, but every villain thinks that they're right,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, he's a sympathetic villain in that, I mean, he doesn't want people to die. He just his solution involves people dying.
Yeah. The ends
Yeah.
justify the means.
Yeah.
The end. There we go. Now we're getting some real stuff. The ends justify the means.
Yeah.
2020.
Well, and that's the thing. Like he just wants, he wants to survive, and he wants to survive with as much of his resources as possible, and so he's trying to, and like it's very possible for all of us to do. He begins to, even start to delude himself, like, no, we're gonna be fine, everything's gonna be fine, and then and then this reveal that's like, oh no, we're not gonna be fine. I think that makes him break. I think that just makes him like do that thing that a lot of people do who shall remain nameless, where when they are given evidence to the contrary of their beliefs, that say like empirical facts, actual facts, and they look at that and go, no, you're wrong, and they just dig in. And I think that's what he does, is he just digs in, and he's like, oh
yeah. He gets so irate and so over the top, like seems like well beyond zealous. He just seems like a madman, essentially.
Exactly.
And it's such an alarming turnoff that everyone kind of realizes that, oh, you aren't, we can't trust you, what you're saying.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Cool. So I think that's pretty much, that is a lot of that too. So basically, and this when we get into like the minutia, as far as we pretty much already discussed what they're going to say to each other, that they're going to say, as far as what you guys said is all those set up there. And then of course it comes down to, I guess that the closing line would have to be Miss Briz saying that I'm willing to, don't you understand, I'm willing to give everything for these people, even if it means my life. And then Vincent, of course, says, I would never die for anybody else, or something like that.
Yeah.
After he gets so irate over the top, he kind of slips and confesses something he shouldn't confess. And it kind of is, it drops the mic. It's kind of a showstopper. That's when everyone just kind of walks off with Miss Briz.
Yeah, and I think, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Harry.
You go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I like the idea of him, like, where we start off where he's charming, and then as the story goes on, we find out, oh, he's kind of a jerk, and then we start to see, oh, he's digging in, like he's not, and he just completely goes off that deep end, and I think I really like that, because and while I sit here and joke and say, like, the people who shall remain nameless, like, that's what I like about what we did here, is that we're showing this is an illusion, this is a metaphor for a lot of what we're going through, and a lot of these political, quote unquote, political dramas that include animals tend to do. And I think this is actually an excellent commentary on something that we're dealing with today, daily.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. I love a good animal allegory.
Exactly, allegory. That's what I was looking.
Yes, no, we do.
And I like that. I mean, it works really well with this character, because I get the feeling he's not the type of person who has been told no, or that he's wrong.
Yeah.
And so when he does, he just refuses to accept, because he's never been wrong before. Why now?
Exactly. His bubble has never let him astray before. He has no idea what to do outside of it.
Yeah. I really like that idea. I think that's awesome.
Okay.
I also, so we've we've gotten the confrontation. We've seen him go kooky dukes. So what I think what I'm trying to do is trying to tie it together, because I think we've jumped around a little bit of the story. What's the timeline, essentially?
Okay, so, well, I don't know how this fits in really, but here's an idea.
Okay.
Where, so he snapped, and refuses to believe that he's wrong. So in order to prove that he's right, he tries to, like, hold her back. and like prevent her from leaving. But since she's selfless, she's like, fine. If you want me to stay, then I'll stay and I'll die. While the rest of them escape.
Oh, I like that. I like that. I'm interested for the motivation. To how would that? Oh, geez, I really like that idea. I want to make it work. I'm just trying to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't want her to die.
Yeah.
But if she stays, she probably will. It's just that because I mean, this would be his like very last breath. Not breath, but like his last hurrah, where he's seeing this is the end of the line for him, and he knows it, and he can't stand it, and so he has to take someone else down with him.
Yes.
I have an idea.
Say it. Nick. So
Okay.
I think you're on the same page.
I get really excited when I think of these things. So okay. So I realize I'm throwing in another character here, but it's a two-dimensional character that is in all of these things, and that is Vincent has a number 2. There's always a number 2. He's the mini boss, and he's essentially the muscle. He's essentially the whatever, and he has essentially been like like, oh yeah, yes, Mr. Vincent, whatever you want, Mr. Vincent, that kind of thing. And then a thing happens, there's the reveal, there's the madness, there's all of that, and something happens where he makes a selfish choice, and that essentially kills him, but it's a slow death. And he asks for her to stay because he doesn't want to die alone, and her being the or we can maybe figure the details on that. But she says yes, and she makes the selfless choice to give him whatever he needs in his dying breaths, but it's essentially suicide on her part. And everything's going, and he dies, and she's there, and she's accepted her fate, and then at the last second, number 2 mini boss pops in and saves her. And he basically pops in and realizes that, like, oh yes, he was the jerk, you're the good one, I'm to take you and save her. And whether he dies or not, that can be left up to other people.
Yes, and I was going to build on that too. I'm sorry, I was trying to catch up, but I was trying to block all this stuff in. But one thing, so yes, we have the number 2 character, or Vincent's number 2, and obviously Vincent was willing to sacrifice him, and we kind of dismissed him. And then during this whole the heightened promotion of the argument, French Fry is pretty much the one that he's like, look here, here's a map of the place. It actually exists. It's real. He's backing up Miss Briz, and Vincent gets so alarmed, so angry that he tries to attack the kid. He tries to attack Will Fry, and Miss Briz goes to try and cover and protect French Fry so he doesn't get harmed. And that's when the number 2 comes back and actually stops Vincent in his tracks. Actually does something to either he gets in the way of the knife or what have you, or he just grabs Vincent by the hand. He does something to save them. But it shows that Brisby's willing to die for this kid, which people didn't expect before, and that Vincent's so evil over the top that he's willing to kill a kid to shut him up.
Yeah, and that action kills the both of them. So they both, because he like he stops, and like I like the idea of like maybe Vincent going to like harm the kid. Briz steps in the way. Number 2 goes, oh, this no good. Steps in a way. I like how I've made him like a Mongo from Blazing Saddles.
Yeah. First he punches a horse, knocks him down.
Yeah, Mongo, only pawn in game of life. Anyway, so he steps in front of Vincent and takes the blow or whatever and pushes Vincent back, and then they fall off a cliff or something.
If it was things where I guess the Mongo dives and hit and catch it, or they pretty much like you said, jumps and they both fall off a cliff or whatnot.
Yeah.
That's that sacrificial lamb he makes, essentially. Yeah. But it kind of after that, there's no doubt that Briz is telling the truth, or at least they have more faith in Briz, and that Vincent has gone too far with his ways he's been acting.
Yeah, I think at that point they've realized, okay, his plan won't work. Like so we only have her plan. So
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ari, we're kind of.
No, I'm listening and agreeing. I'm sorry, as my attention is, but yeah, I really like that. My one grievance is that I don't want number 2 to be this like Deus Ex Machina. I want this character to be a feature
Mhm.
throughout the whole thing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Where maybe we're not quite sure if we can trust them. All right. I'm of two minds. I like the dumb kind of like the reason why Vincent has employed this person for so long is because he doesn't ask questions,
Mhm.
and he's very loyal and is kind of stupid.
Mhm.
I like that, but I also like the idea of maybe this person is smart and pragmatic, just like Vincent, um, and works under him because up until now, maybe he or she has agreed with the way that he does things.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then, unlike Vincent, he or she will, hears Mrs. Brizz's concerns.
Exactly.
And you know what? She has a point, man.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think it goes both ways. That Briz is actually the first person that's willing to listen to number two as well.
Right.
Vincent's always like, my word is law, whatever I say is right. And because, like you said, he's dismissed as being simple, he actually isn't that simple. He actually has thoughts and things.
Yeah.
But he's quote unquote part of his entourage, so he's never heard out. But Brisby is willing to talk to him and listen to him, and they're able to have a conversation. So throughout the story, the number two, let's call him, I don't know, Mongo for right now, whatever, he actually, we see the wheels turning in his head. So it's not so much like a random out of nowhere Deus Ex Machina. It's more or less a plan to pay off. The plant of these plans throughout the story have been Briz and him interacting, and we see him slowly, the gear slowly turning, and then finally at the end, he's willing to make that sacrifice. And he makes that choice because he does actually, he believes in her. He's willing to say, he's willing to protect her, and he realizes that Vincent has been wrong all along.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be completely honest. I got the idea. Toy Story 3. If you've all seen that, there's the bad guy in that is Luxo, I think, and he has a number 2, which is essentially an extremely creepy baby doll that is missing an eye and is hairless and everything, and in the movie, they were actually from the same owner, and they got lost, and when they went back, they like went all the way back to their owner's house, and they discovered that Luxo had been replaced, but the other two hadn't, but Luxo told them that he had. And so the whole movie, that's how he kept the baby under his thing, and then at the end, it's the baby finds out that it's not. And so I
lying the whole time.
Yeah, and but while the baby was kind of like mindless and Mongo like, I do like that idea of making the number 2 like not a complete schmuck. Like I think it would be a good idea to have them have brains, and then have that be, and I do think this is a character that should be from the beginning, because Vincent doesn't seem like the type of character that would be doing any sort of dirty work on his own. And and even clean work he would necessarily wouldn't be doing on his own. He seems like the type. So he would definitely have a number 2 that would help him, and that would be the heavy in situations where a heavy
he's a heavy,
is needed.
He's a heavy. Yeah. And I think part of what it is too is, like you just mentioned, the idea that there is some evidence. Like if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I saw 3, but it's something happens to reveal to the baby. I think Woody does something to help the baby realize that Luxo's been lying to the baby the entire time.
Yeah.
And so it could be something similar to where Briz reveals to number 2 Mongo character, like, because he still wants to believe Vincent's always been telling the truth with him, that Vincent hasn't led him astray. Briz could reveal something to him, like some actual evidence, as far as like, here, this is an item, or here's some food that you thought Vincent was always looking for your best interest, had you had your best interest in mind the whole time. Here's some hard evidence to show you.
I like that. I like the idea that Vincent's been lying, but I also like the idea of maybe we can strike a balance where the number 2 is like, yeah, I know what he's been doing, and I've agreed with him up until now.
Yeah, like
so he has some guilt already.
Yeah, I like the idea that he's just it's that Vincent went a line too far.
Yeah, like, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like number 2 has standards, okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
I like that. I like that.
I think it's a thing where when it's revealed that Vincent's plan isn't viable. Like it's that he's just been kind of talking out his ass. That's like Vincent digs in, but this guy's like, oh wait, no, yeah, I didn't sign up for this.
The facts and figures you gave me are actually wrong and bullshit made up. No.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yeah, and so yeah, you're right. And the number 2, Mongo is able to put 2 and 2 together himself under his own volition, and he realizes that this isn't right. And there may be a scene or something where number 2 tries to talk to Vincent as far as saying, Vincent, this is, maybe we should give this some thought. Maybe we should, A, B, and C, what have you.
Yeah. Oh, and
Vincent shuts him down.
You're turning on me too, and it's all this.
Yeah.
It leads to him being super intense and terrible.
Right. Exactly. And I'll call him the number 2 Luxo because it's out better than Mongo.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's a lot to try to clock in here. God.
That's fine.
Yeah, sorry.
No.
I'm working on some. All right. Sorry.
Sorry, what were you working
on? I'm doing fun visual things, but and I'm trying to make them work, but my visuals I was messing them up instead of doing what I wanted to do. So now I'm trying to fix them.
Okay. It's one last detail would be, how does this confrontation come into being? Is it this that, because I guess the first confrontation more or less would be that after, the way I have it written right now more or less is that after French Fry and Briz do some research together, basically during the time when French Fry was talking about how there's this great, imagine this wonderful green land that has all this food and everything with no humans, he describes the shape of the place. Looking like a shoe or something like that. And when Brisby is doing her own research later on, doing her own reading, she stumbles upon basically a map showing a place that looks like a shoe of some kind. And then later on, her and French Fry, she talks to French Fry about this place, and they do more research together, and they decide that this actually does exist and probably is worth going to. And then that's when Briz could try to confront, just not even confront, just talk to Vincent casually and calmly about this. And Vincent seems very charming, very calm, and says, "Oh no, I'm not sure that'll work. Our better plan to do is just for us to dig." And that'd be the first time that we really see the Luxo, or number 2, kind of hearing what Briz has to say, and pretty much he tries to chime in as well. And then Vincent could shut him down, or Vincent could say, "Oh, don't worry about that. I know what's best for us," kind of thing. Yeah. That's kind of the first plant of them actually doing that. Yeah. But then what would have to happen though is there'd have to be another confrontation, a bigger confrontation, where.
Well, I was gonna say I think what may happen is so that happens. There's a little bit more of a back and forth. I'm not sure necessarily what kind of filler there could be, but there's a little bit more time, and then what triggers the final confrontation, I think, is another refugee shows up. And it's a refugee from that neighboring land that Vincent's like, see, they dug deeper and they're fine. And he shows up and he's like, I'm the only survivor. And then he takes them to that, since it's a neighbor, it's not far. He takes them there and shows them essentially the waste of the the foundation of the McMansion that is there. And then that's where Vincent has his break, where he's like, no, you're lying. They're here. Blah, and then he,
especially because I think that he honestly, genuinely believed in his plan, and he thought it was a good one. Mm-hmm. And all the baggage that comes with being told, actually, no, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So another refugee shows up. And this it doesn't even have to be a different one. It could be within the hole that they're already digging, because we could have it that once Briz goes to Vincent, saying that have an idea of how we try to migrate to this place that French Fry talked about, and he shuts it down. They start digging then, and it could be that one of the able-bodied people that's down there digging is like, no, we can't do this. This is horrible. We're dying out or something.
I gotta say, I'm gonna fight for the idea of saying that another refugee shows up, just because I think having that, because I think the filler that I was talking about could be like, everybody goes, yeah, no, I think Vincent's idea is better because We don't have to go anywhere. And so they start digging everything. They start putting resources into that. And Briz is just standing there like, oh God. And then this other refugee, and that's the catalyst. And
yes, I'm on board with that, but I'm saying it'd be at their own, because I don't see that the idea that a random refugee from another place are you saying that another refugee?
No, he shows up just like Little Nugs.
Oh yes, yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, you're on the same page. On the same page then.
Yeah.
So a refugee that's been digging, helping them dig at their own place. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. No, another refugee shows up. Like he comes there like, I'm here. Please help me. My land is now gone. And they're like, oh, where are you from? And they're like, oh, just down the street. That's not there anymore.
Just the place that's gone now.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like the a little bit too much, but because we've already got a lot of conflict happening here. But it would be cool. It wouldn't be cool. It would be terrible if, as part of this, like maybe the refugee only tells Ms. Briz and Vincent first, and then Vincent's like, okay, I need to shut this guy up. I need to kill him, because if he tells everybody else, then they're not going to want to do my plan.
Yes.
Yeah. I like that. I think.
Yes. So it's not out in the open. It's more behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that is like maybe that like he goes to hurt the refugee and something. And again, this would be getting into too many details, but like Briz intervenes and lets the community at large know, yeah, no, this is what we're dealing with here. And then the final conflict.
But you're right, though. It'd be too simple if the community saw this refugee as well. It pretty much would have to be that this refugee might actually either die after he reveals to Vincent what's happening, that this isn't going to work. Briz and Luxo see it, and Luxo, who's always been quiet about this, sees definitive proof that it's not going to happen. It's not going to work. But yes.
Yeah.
And so when Briz is confronting Briz is confronting Vincent in front of the group doesn't know about the refugee. The only witnesses to it are just Briz, Vincent, and Luxo. And so because it's always been, I'm sorry, go ahead, Laura.
No, you finish your thought. I'm sorry. My mouth works and doesn't shut.
Your mouth definitely does work, my friend. But because it's always been Luxo and Vincent versus Briz, or Luxo's always sided with Vincent, there's no, obviously Briz realizes that she's going to be on her own again, and so she tries to convince everyone what just happened, what the refugee just told them, and that they definitely need to go and try to migrate to a different place. And as she's trying to say all these things, French Fry is trying to chime in as well, trying to show them the map that everything can go to that'll be safe for them, that'd be kind of a promised land or a green land, so to speak, and they're not really buying it. And then Luxo finally chimes in and says something as far as like, he makes a stand basically saying, no, I heard this too. Vincent may even ask Luxo, what do you think about this? And he actually does. He officially makes chooses a side and sides with Briz. And then that's when Vincent really loses it. Kind of starts screaming, getting really irate. And he may try, and the first thing he tries to do, because he realizes he can't attack Luxo, or he sees the kid as being the single biggest factor in all this, and he tries to attack the kid. Briz goes to protect the kid to keep him safe. Luxo lunges at Vincent, and that's when the two of them fall into the hole that Vincent's been trying to dig, and they die that way. But I'm sorry, you going to say something?
Wouldn't you know it? I've forgotten.
Oh, that's what I was afraid of. I don't want you to get it.
So, okay, so I like that a lot, and that's what I was thinking too. But I think this should happen at like the end of Act 2, giving Vincent a chance to just go truly batshit, and start doing his best to get back at Mrs. Briz and Luxo, instead of the whole thing happening right away.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. There has to be some pause. And it could be, I guess, because she obviously is a nun, she's trying to take care of, once the refugee gets back to camp, or once the refugee comes up trying to tell Vincent that this isn't going to work, this is too dangerous, he's not dead yet. He's just he's very injured or whatnot, but he's still alive, and she's nursing him. She's trying to talk. She's talking to him. She's trying to take care of him.
Well, wait, I lost the thread. So Ari, you think that the murder of the refugee should happen at the end of Act 2?
Yeah, okay, so all right, this is. Oh boy. All right. Yeah. So what I gathered from what Ethan was saying was that everything comes out at once, and that's the where Luxo and Mrs. Briz are like, no, actually, this is actually what's happening. He's been lying to you. And then maybe Vincent's like, she's the one who's lying. She wants this so badly. I mean, she's clearly gone insane. And then like, that's not true. But then I don't want him trying to kill her or Luxo sacrificing himself at that exact point in time just yet. I want Vincent to maybe like whirl away in a huff or something and like realize he's outmatched and then come back later for the final confrontation.
Yeah. Well, that's what I like. I like I like the idea of the refugee showing up, reveals that Vincent's plan isn't going to work. Briz and Luxo see that through, Vincent kills the refugee in a way that makes it like maybe he just choked to death on a lemon. I don't know. And so there's like a question like maybe he didn't kill him, maybe it was an accident. And that is just like another little seed in Luxo's mind of oh, maybe this guy isn't because if that refugee was telling the truth, then we're with Glode.
Yeah.
And then have that be like where Vincent starts to break. And then I think there should be so they're continuing with the dig, and then something forces them to see what is about to happen, like the bulldozers show up or whatever. And that's when Vincent breaks, and that's when he goes completely batshit, and is like, no, this is gonna work, blah blah blah. And then but that confrontation happens later, and that's when Luxo essentially sacrifices himself to save the little kid.
Right. Yeah, maybe the maybe it like it starts happening right then. And so everybody's in a panic and trying to run away, and like he's the only one staying back, like, no, we can still do this. And then he's seeing, I mean, Mrs. Briz is probably staying back to help people too, and he's just like, you did this. And Luxo's there too, and that's when the whole confrontation happens.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
That makes sense. It definitely sounds like it. All I was gonna say, yeah, I'm on board for that. After fine, but all I was gonna say was that it could be one of those things where after Vincent and Briz and Luxo hear what this refugee has to say about the whole having problems and issues, Briz stays back with the refugee trying to help him out, and then Vincent and Luxo go to the hole and see what's going on. And like you said, that's when you can see that things aren't going to work. Things are getting weird, to have you. And Briz is trying to help out the refugee. Then Vincent, realizing that he may be his hubris, that he may have actually made a mistake, goes back, sees the refugee, and kind of, as Briz, excuses herself to tend to do something, what have you. Vincent is alone with the refugee in this place, and as Vincent comes out, the refugee's dead. His only witness to all this is dead, and Luxo didn't actually see what actually happened, but it's kind of implied he may have killed him. We don't actually know. Like you said, that could be the whole. This is where it kind of kicks into gear as far as things falling apart for Vincent, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right. So it's everything from that point is what you said, Nate. But that's kind of the filler that Ari's talking about as far as a reprieve between the epic climax and the refugee first getting there. That's what happens in the film.
Yeah. That works. Okay. That works for me.
All right. And that should be, and like you said, we already have the ending set up as far as the confrontation, and it's revealed that how Briz feels about things, how she wants to sacrifice herself for these people, is willing to make that sacrifice, and Vincent is willing to do everything he can for self-preservation. Luxo makes a sacrifice to save the kid and Briz, and they both fall in the pit. And then, kind of like an epilogue, we see the everyone, that the refugees, Briz, the kids, all of them migrating
Mhm.
is in place, and like the last shot could be them actually getting there. Basically, you see the sun shining on this green land with no people. That's
Yeah.
lots of fruit and stuff. Lots of fruit.
Lots of fruit. Is
Lots of fruit. So that's all that matters.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that pretty much sums it up.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. As we hear Ethan tapping away as he locks things in.
Trying to lock everything in. Sorry about that. I know it's a long.
That's fine. No, lock it in. Hack it in. Oh, bugger. Sorry. I'm giving the audience a visual thing.
No, of course.
That's
okay. All right, so nice Act 3 would be where they actually had a big confrontation, a big battle. And I'll just say that Act 3 is we pretty much know what it actually already is. I can say that off memory. All right, so are you guys ready for the wrap up?
yes.
Okay, it's maybe a little sloppy because I'm going for all of Act 3. I'm going off of my off the dome because I didn't write anything. I had just 1-2 notes there, but nothing too serious. All right, so bear with us, people. All right, here we go. And this is for our story entitled Nun on the Run, aka Nunja, a political drama underground with a nun, a narrator, and a miser. All right, start off with a world of animals and woodland creatures are forced to live underground due to humans building homes in the woods, aka building up suburbs. A miser character, Mr. Vincent, wants to keep the underground community underground where he believes it's safest. Vincent runs things as a sort of a mayor with all the resources. After many years, the resources start to run thin. Miss Briz is working with young animals in school, teaching them history and other subjects, but they get daily rations, so they're not too worried just yet. One of the kids, little French fry, tells Miss Briz about an amazing place called Amazing Greenland, full of food and no humans. This Greenland is supposedly shaped like a shoe, according to his legends from his grandfather. Miss Briz dismisses French fry's story as a bit of a fantasy because she doesn't really like kids to begin with. Miss Briz and Vincent find some refugees, aka above ground critters from the newly deforested area, and they welcome them into their own community. Later on, Miss Briz asks for rations for all the refugees, and Vincent, for the first time, starts to show his true colors and also restricts the rations just to the most able-bodied animals that can help them work and build the community. Later on, Miss Briz is doing some reading on her own time and stumbles upon a map showing a place that is shaped like a shoe, which kind of shines a light on the idea that what French Fry said might have some truth to it. Briz realizes that French Fry's fantasy, or Briz talks to French Fry about this Greenland that he talked about, and they actually do some research together, and they actually do figure out where it actually is located. Briz goes to Vincent and tries to convince him to migrate to Greenland. Vincent dismisses her proposal as being a bit of a fantasy, and that digging down further is the only real way to survive. But Vincent's number 2, Luxo, sees some validity in what Briz is saying. Vincent and the others start digging instead of migrating further. Another refugee shows up and reveals that there is nowhere, that the hole that Vincent is digging isn't actually going to work. Vincent, Briz, and Luxo are the only witnesses to what the refugee has to say. Because this refugee is so wounded, Briz decides to stay with him, try to nurse him back to health, while Vincent and Luxo go off to see the conditions of the hole, see what's going on there. And while they're there, Vincent and Luxo realize the hole isn't going to work. And while Briz is tending to the refugee, Vincent comes back and asks to be alone a little while with the alien refugee, and he mysteriously dies under weird conditions that no one actually is able to see but Vincent. After this, this is when Briz confronts Briz confronts Vincent as far as saying that this isn't going to work, this is dangerous, that the best solution they have is to migrate to a new land. Vincent, of course, pushes back against that. Then the little French fry tries to come and aid Miss Briz and shows the map to everyone as far as this is the best possible solution we have. then Vincent, because the people love him so much, no one believes anything that Miss Briz says. No one thinks anything about this refugee existing, and it's pretty much they're on their own. It's their word against everyone else. And Luxo chimes in saying that this actually is the truth, that there was another refugee that said this. And Vincent loses it and lashes out, trying to kill the kid for bringing up this idea of this fantasy Greenland. Miss Briz tries to protect the kid as best she can, and then Luxo lunges and tackles Vincent, and the two of them fall into a big pit that they were essentially digging themselves. They were almost digging their own grave, so to speak. And as the story comes to a close, we see Miss Briz, all the elders, all the refugees, all the kids walk into this new Greenland, and we hear the story being concluded or wrapped up by our narrator, Little French Fry.
Yes, I like it.
Word.
Awesome.
And that is the story of the Nun on the Run, aka Nunja. And now it's time for everyone's favorite part of the show. It is the holy shit. It is the artwork of Ariana Horner III. It is amazing. These belong like, oh my god, these are exquisite. Ari, so this is Ari's corner. Would you like to talk the listeners through your artwork?
Oh well, it's pretty self-explanatory. On the left, we have Mr. Vincent, the cranky old badger man, and on the right, we have Mrs. Briz, mouse nun lady.
She is. Wow, this looks amazing. It reminds me of. I'm not sure it reminds you of Nate, but it reminds me of that old Disney shorts, the one that the Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the best possible way, because I love that.
No, I used to watch that when I was a kid.
Oh man, that is just incredible.
Looks amazing.
Damn,
it looks great. Yes, and all Ari's amazing artwork will be available to see very soon.
Yes.
So yeah,
yes.
Stay with us about how to see everything she's doing, because it is great. It really is great.
Thank you.
Alrighty, well that kind of takes us. I'm gonna push it over to the ending here. We're on the outgo on this. So thank you everybody for joining us.
Yes, but before we go, we did want to have it's because we know this is a really rough time. Sorry to cut you off, Nate. This is a rough time. We wanted to thank you all for coming and listening to us prattle on for a while. Hopefully, it was enough of a distraction for a moment or two. And we wanted to just share some good news with you, or some silly news, or some funny stories. Did either of you have a random funny story or joke you wanted to share before we send our listeners off?
Well, yeah. So, in an act of, there are some things that restore my faith in humanity, and this isn't just because it directly affects me, but my friends sort of banded together and bought me a Nintendo Switch.
Nice.
Yeah.
Switch.
Nice. It's a light. It's a handheld. It's not. That's. That's what I want. And it's just. It has kept me sane, and I've been playing so much Animal Crossing.
Oh my god, I love it.
Did we lose Ethan?
No, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you now. You cut out there for a second.
Sorry. No, all I said was I loved every inch of what she did. Sorry.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I was, just very emotionally overwhelmed. And you know what? Sometimes people can be so nice, and I love you. Not that they can hear me, but thank you.
No, of course. We'll send whoever it was, Ari's friends, besides Nate and I, that got her running together to get her the Switch. Thank you so much. We love you all.
Yes.
Did. Nate, did you have a story?
Well, I now have alcohol. No, no, it's well, actually, the one bit of positivity is going to be kind of weird. Is the fact that I'm appreciating every day the fact that I'm getting something forced by circumstance that a lot of people weren't able to get with their kids, and that's the fact that I get to spend a significant amount of time with my kids. And while I joke and say that they're little hellions and they drive me insane and all of that, it's nice being able to spend entire days with them and watching them grow and watching them, yes, they can be little jerks, like all children can, but it's just nice to just get to spend so much time with them that I wouldn't have gotten had this situation gone, like had this spring been a normal spring. I would have been sending them to daycare and school every day, and I'd have been going to work, and because of all of this, and while I would not wish this situation on the world, I am looking at the positivity of it, that I can spend as much time with my kids as I am. So that's something that I'm looking at and remembering and holding close.
That's
Absolutely.
good. Nice.
Absolutely. What's funny when you said, but I would not wish this. I thought you said, although I would not parenting upon anybody.
Well, just think long and hard. That's one thing. Like, they tell you about the diapers, they tell you about the not sleeping for the first year, but what they don't tell you about is that take all of the parts that you hate about yourself and then put it into a little person, and then watch them do things, and you go, oh shit, I do that. I hate that.
Right, there is justice.
You know Vine. Have you seen? Vines? Have you seen Vines?
Oh yeah.
Of course. 600.
Okay. There's this one where it's stupid. I can't do it justice by explaining what it is, but there's this guy who's looking at this stupid meme, and he's like, I do that.
Yes, that is parenting.
Right, exactly. But what makes it worse, the worst part about it is that they're put in such cute bite-sized packages that you can't be too upset or just kill them because they're too cute to kill. They're
exactly.
Oh my gosh, yeah. But they need to do is figure out some scientists need to figure out a way to make some ugly babies or ugly kids. That way, it's okay for us to get if they want to harm them. Yes.
So Ethan's version of positivity is genetically modifying children so they're easier to kill. Okay.
Ugly kids. Good night, everybody. Merry Christmas to you all. So I have two real quick stories I'll tell. One, I guess, is a more serious but good positive story that happened just a few days ago, and one is a funny story that I'll end with. So the positive story is that my favorite place to go, of course, is Chipotle. I love that place. It's real close. I can actually walk there. Get some exercise every day. And I went there the other day in my usual meal, and there was this homeless person that was standing outside. And he asked me, he said, hey man, would you mind getting him a burrito? And I said, sure, of course, why not? Least I can do for this guy who's going through all kinds of crap is get him a burrito. Chipotle. And he came inside the store, and as soon as I walked inside the store, the people that worked there kind of gave me a weird little eye they kind of clocked me right away. And I was certain they were going to tell me and him to leave, be upset with me for bringing them in there or whatnot. And I said, he kind of, the guy, the homeless man, seemed a bit, kind of standoffish. He seemed really quiet and kind of worried. And I said, no, it's all right, man. Go ahead. Just go ahead. I'll take the blame, whatever. And so he got his meal, got a burrito and everything. And I said, he's with me. Don't worry, I'll pay for it. And when it was time for me to leave, time for me to actually, pay for everything, they told me, I said, oh, no worries, sir. It's perfectly fine. I said, what? And they said, well, we have this, at Chipotle now we have this policy that if you are willing to, if we see kindness in the community here, that we'll pay it forward to you as well. So your meals on us, on the house. And they thanked me for what I did. And I almost had a tear in my eyes. That's so nice. I'm confident to do that. So Chipotle, thank you so much for giving me and this other guy a free meal.
Thanks,
Chipotle. Really
Chipotle.
appreciate it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thanks, Chipotle. And here's a funny story that's not quite as it ended really, really. When Ari and I were first hanging out, one of the first times, if you remember this, Ari, one of the first things we did, we went to a Sonic up there in Waynesboro.
Yeah.
Went to a Sonic, and like an idiot, I got like 2 chili dogs and chili fries. I got way too much chili.
Oh yeah, that was a bad time.
Yeah. So it was a really horrible decision. And then we went to the library and sat at this gazebo and just talked for like an hour or so. We talked for a while. And then my stomach said, "You hey idiot, remember that chili you ate? All that chili you ate? Well, it's coming up now." So I was like, "Oh, Ari, I'm sorry. I have to go to the restroom." And at first tried to go to the library and actually go there, but it was on weekend, so they were closed, aggressively closed. And I was like, "Hey, Ari, I need to go somewhere now to go to the bathroom." So she's like, "Okay." And the only place I could think of was not her house, which is literally 5 feet away, I drove us to our best friend Susan's house, and I told them as I was coming up, I said, "Hey, I have to use the restroom right now. Please just unlock the door and let me in immediately." And Susan wasn't quite expecting guests or anything, so she said, "Well, I'm not really properly dressed." I said, "I don't care. I'll close my eyes. Just please open the door." And she goes, "Okay, it's fine." And so as they drove up there, left the car running, didn't even turn the car off, jumped out the car, ran into the house, and Susan, true to her word, she was kind of just off to the side, didn't let me see her, and I pretty much collapsed into the bathroom at the last second. And it was again, this is when I first started hanging out. So Ari's first impression of me was a guy who blows up himself in the bathroom after eating chili.
That was not an impression of you that is fine. It happens to everyone. I mean, you're human.
Yes. Wow.
Sure.
That was a side of you. Wow. I'm glad you didn't do that. So now it explains, because you see, every time I've gone to a restaurant with you, I go and I'll get I got a meal, or regular meal or whatever, just the general thing on the menu, and Ethan gets salad, and and I'm beginning to understand. Oh yeah, apparently he doesn't like to eat around me. He eats I think the most I've ever seen you eat was a double cheeseburger at a McDonald's. So
that is so not my experience.
No, well, so here, what it is though is that Nate and I and Nick's, our favorite place to hang out, of course, was Bricks back in the day. We go there while we were working our shifts for Lyft, and Nate would usually get just a basic cheese pizza, pretty healthy pizza.
No. I would always get unless you. Oh no, Bricks. You're talking Bricks. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you were
Bricks,
talking
not the other one.
Good,
Fabio's the other one. But at Bricks, and I would say, okay, I'll get a pizza too, and I'll get a pepper on it, and I might get a salad along with that sometimes. And sometimes I would just get a salad with salmon or something, because I was still driving, and because I was on my shift for Lyft, I knew I couldn't have too much heavy food in me, so I would get a salad sometimes with that.
Okay.
So yeah, that's why. So yeah, you're right. I would say salad. And obviously with Ari, I would. There was no holds barred, because she saw me at my absolute possible worst. Then her and I pig out. We literally would have burger days. We literally would especially pig out our faces off just to love all kinds of toilets. We didn't care.
Some of my most cherished memories is pigging out with you, but don't even worry about it, because it could have been worse. You could have shit yourself in the car.
Yeah, it was close. It was my God, it was close.
Oh,
yeah.
So.
Well, on that note. And what's great is that we can't hear it, but that all of those stories had a lovely bed of elevator music playing underneath. So
yeah, perfect. Way to frame that.
Yeah, way to frame it. All right, well, thank you everybody for joining us today. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out. If you're on Twitch, you've checked us out on Twitch. Check us out on Facebook. We have a podcast. The audio will be in podcast, so find that wherever you find podcasts. And so thank you so much, everybody, and y'all have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Bye.